Hey guys, benpaines here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are back at Teamsport Cardiff, ready to put in our second BIKC times of the year for 2024. This time the layout for this one, we had a 3 heats followed by a consequenting final depending on how the heats went. So we're going to jump straight into the footage. We're going to get through this one nice and quickly just to show you guys some of the best moments and all the action that sort of unfolded throughout the evening. So you can see straight away we started in 5th position, getting dive bombed by the King of Cardiff himself immediately. Chris Ball going down the inside, so that distributed us back down into 6th place. We didn't have any practice in this one, so we just had to jump straight in the car. So obviously this is only the second time I've been at the track in the last 12 months. So I was really hoping to try and get on the pace as quickly as possible, just try and keep up with as many of the guys that were going around as we could, and just see where we could end up. If we could get into the A final, then that would be a massive bonus. Now obviously this year we are competing in the heavyweight category, which is 85 kilos. I'm currently around 86 to 87 kilos, so we're perfectly in that slot for racing in the heavyweight category in BIKC this year. So we're just going to come over to Cardiff, put in 3 times and see where we end up this year. Obviously we haven't had the best luck in BIKC when it gets to the regional level of it, so we're hoping this year we can do one better and see how far we can get. Now in this one we were just trying to get our head down, catch up with the group up ahead. Obviously, as I've mentioned, we were just straight out on the track, no practice, so I was a little bit off the pace at the beginning of the evening. However, I knew that in a heat where we started reasonably near the front, if we'd be able to hold our position, obviously we started in 5th place, then if we were able to hold this place, then we'd be on for a decent result come the end of the evening. But I also wanted to get my head down and really try and put the pressure on the drivers that were battling with each other up ahead. So we come across the line and round the last couple of corners here to a 36.943, which is obviously not the quickest times at Cardiff at the moment, but the track was still quite cold at the beginning of the evening, and this, I knew in the back of my mind, was only going to the track was going to grip up and get quicker as the evening went on. So we're just trying to put in the best times we can, getting loaded a little bit from behind here, sort of putting us off a little bit, but I still felt like we were driving quite well, obviously trying to capitalise on Chris Ball going for some nice moves down the inside into the bottom of the hairpin there, and we followed Dan Cummings through here on the bottom section of the track to move ourselves up into 4th place, which clearly the driver behind didn't really like, as we were taking an absolute battering. However, we do skip forward in this one as we just stayed in 4th for a majority of this one. And behind Dan Cummings, you can see the drivers in 1st and 2nd have raced off into the distance. I knew that if I wanted to try and make another place, it would sort of be a bit dangerous, so I decided to sit in behind him here. And as we come into the bottom corner, this is where we began to become a little bit unstuck here. We've got Anthony Roberts, who's managed to make a move down the inside. We then have Max Thorne there, who was looking to make his way past. Luckily, he got caught on the barrier, so we didn't lose 2 positions in one corner. We only lost 1. So back down into 5th place here, but that did disrupt our rhythm a little bit. You can see our last lap is a 37.205. Trying to modulate the throttle as best we can, as it was feeling quite slippy on this evening compared to what I'm used to at Cardiff when I've been over in the past, and it's been nice and grippy. But as we come up the ramp once again, a couple of laps later, you can see we've lost a bit of time to the drivers up ahead in 3rd and 4th. Obviously we are having to defend. Unfortunately, we didn't quite defend well enough, as Max is able to sniff out the gap there and make his way up into 5th position, robbing it off of us, and we are now down into 6th. However, I didn't realise at the time that Max had actually received a penalty, so come the end of the race, I knew that we weren't going to still be in 6th. I knew that we were currently still in 5th place, and I knew that if we just kept our head down, kept going, then we'd be on for a good result, as I mentioned earlier. So skipping forward to the end of the race here, that's pretty much where we stayed. We stayed in 6th. We managed to catch up with the guys up ahead that were having a bit of a battle, but we weren't really able to do anything with it. And we come around now again across the line with a 35.380. So as I mentioned, the track was gripping up, the times were getting quicker, and obviously we were also getting more confident as the race went on further and further. Using the top section of the track, really trying to open the track up to get as good a run out of the double hairpin section. And again, you can see that Max is now looking for a move on Dan Cummings if he can get it, whilst also under pressure from Anthony Roberts behind him. So it's really nice to watch this. It was a really fun little battle that they were all having with one another. Into the bottom section of the track, really trying to open the corner up once again. but as I mentioned, we weren't able to do anything with it, coming across the line in 6th, which did turn into 5th. However, we're going to jump straight into the second heat here, where we had our back start. I believe that we were starting in 11th position here, so I knew that we had to really try and power our way through the pack if we wanted to get a good result from this one. The first corner, where everyone gets released at Cardiff, is always a bit of a shambles, if I'm honest, and we're able to capitalise on this pretty early, moving ourselves up 1 position into 10th place, and now we were hoping to push forward, try and make a few more positions if we could. We got Sky up ahead, who goes a little bit wide here, waves us through, so we take another free position up into 9th place here, and now we just had to get our head down, catch up with the rest of the pack. And unbeknown to me, we did actually have one of the better karts in this heat, and it is going to show, as you'll see throughout this heat. We're able to get a massive amount of overspeed coming up the ramp, which is something that I'm really not used to at all, being a heavier driver. So you can see through the top section here, just had a lot of grip. This allowed us to make a nice early move into the bottom hairpin there and take our place into 8th now, and we just kept looking forward, kept trying to keep our foot in, especially on this bottom section, which usually you tend to have to modulate the throttle or lift off, but here we were just able to keep it pinned, really go for it. And now once again we're going for another move on the driver up ahead, who's going very wayward throughout the bottom section of the track. You can see here I'm weaving left and right, trying to find a gap, and we're able to make it stick around the top left sweeping corner into 7th place. So we've already managed to make 4 positions in this one, coming across the line on our last lap with a 35.616, which is only 6 tenths off our fastest lap in the first heat. So it goes to show how much the track evolution was sort of kicking in, how we were gaining more confidence, we were getting quicker throughout this second heat, and now we were just really going to try and get our head down and do some damage. So coming across the line even quicker on this lap, despite making an overtake at 35.529, and I was hoping that the guys up ahead were going to continue to battle with one another, and this was going to allow us to sort of get involved in the fight and just try and do what we can. So you can see here they're all holding each other up coming through the top section of the track, and each corner we're just getting closer and closer, just really getting on the power as early as we can, braking nice and sharply just to get the car rotated, and then again through the bottom section of the track, as I mentioned, just staying pinned all the way to the floor. And you can see how much time we're gaining bit by bit, and obviously, as I mentioned, this car felt really nice to drive. Unfortunately, that last lap was a little bit slower, 35.800, but we are now catching up with the guys up ahead and hoping to get involved in the fun that is going on. So the guys up ahead are trying to get past Mike Allen, who is in 3rd position currently, and then we've got 4th, 5th and 6th up ahead of us as well. We've got a driver going up the inside there, gets put into the barrier, all sorts of chaos starts kicking off, and I was hoping to capitalise on this. This is exactly what I wanted. Anthony Roberts goes quite wide there. We sort of get pinned into the barrier there as he comes back across, but we're able to make the move stick, moving ourselves up into 6th place. Have a little bit of a nudge on the driver up ahead of us once again, but we're able to have enough overspeed where we're able to just slot our way up the inside into the bottom hairpin before the up ramp, and this then allows us to get up into 5th place. So another 2 positions gained pretty quickly on that last lap, and now we're hoping that Jacob up ahead of us once again gets held up by Mike even more, and this will allow us to really try and put the pressure on getting a top 3 result, obviously from coming essentially 2nd from the back in this heat, which would have been a really good result, and obviously would have been maximising the car that we've been given. So you can see up ahead once again, just trying to take a nice smooth line through the bottom section of the track. Don't want to get the back end of the car out too much, as the car then tends to bog down and you just lose your grip, and it's just not what you really want. And then I personally take a nice sweeping line through the bottom hairpin just to try and maximise as much speed up the ramp as you possibly can. Obviously I don't go out completely wide, as there are people on our tail as well. You can see Jacob is now stuck up behind Mike, we're now stuck up behind Jacob, and everyone's in a nice little train. So now we're in part of the train, and you can see we've lost out there to Anthony once again, who's been able to do the exact same move he did in the first heat, slotting down our inside into that bottom hairpin. And we weren't done there, as Gabe Quinter goes down our inside in a very unorthodox position, and honestly it's a really good move from him, slotting himself up into 6th. So unfortunately, as much as easily and as quickly as we made 2 positions, we then lost 2 positions pretty quickly in 1 lap as well, which was a bit of a shame. But I was determined to get my head back down, try and catch back up with the guys, because I knew that they were still struggling to get past Mike, who was putting up a very good defensive display. And luckily for us here, Gabe just gets caught out on the outside here, and we're able to follow Mike back through, who has lost 2 positions, and this then puts us back up into 6th place, our fastest lap of the race. Last lap at 35.179, so I knew that we had some pretty decent pace in this one. Obviously still being in the train and still being able to put in some decent laps is always something that it's really good to see. So once again, going through the top section of the track, trying to get the car rotated and as close to those barriers as we can. Missing the apex there a little bit, coming down the ramp, carrying a little bit too much speed, coming down the ramp and not really braking enough. But the car we're given has allowed us to really sort of mitigate this and really get our head down and stay with him. We come across the line once again at 35.363, and here is evidence of how much of an overspeed this car had going up the ramps. We're able to make a nice late move on Mike here and move our way back up into 5th position once again. Just really had some nice overspeed coming up the ramp despite not having the best exit out of the bottom hairpin, and this just allowed us to really capitalise on the gap that he'd opened up for us. Not too much contact, obviously there was a little bit of contact, but it wasn't awful, and we're able to sort of plough our way through it and really try and get our head down to try and catch up with the two lads that were racing away now up ahead of us. And even despite having this little bit of contact and the overtake with Mike, we come across the line with our fastest lap of the race so far yet again at 35.109, and I really wanted to try and improve on this as we continued throughout the race or the heat. So again, we're trying to get the car rotated, really get as close to the barriers as we can, braking just before you reach the bottom of the ramp here, just to ensure you're braking on the wood rather than the concrete at the bottom. And again, just trying to get as tight as we can coming through this bottom section, trying to really gradually hit the brakes coming into that big braking zone there, just to ensure we don't lock the tyres and lose momentum. We do receive a black and white flag, but we also receive our fastest lap of the heat and actually of the night, I believe, or one of the fastest of the night we were able to do with a 34.827. And honestly, we skipped to the end because that's where we stayed. So that's 2 races now done and 2 top 5 finishes, which I was really happy with. And now we move into the 3rd race, where we started in our top heat, where we started near the front of the pack in 2nd place, and I was hoping if we could catch the driver in first nap in, then we'd be able to really get underway and get a good result from it. However, as you can see immediately, this wasn't the case. The driver in first just bolts away immediately, and we had absolutely no speed in this car. It was night and day difference from the car we used in the 2nd heat, and it was just a whole lot more of a struggle. So here we can see once again, obviously having to adjust to the new car as quickly as possible, coming around to start the 1st lap. We are still in 2nd, and I was really happy with this as I didn't want to leak positions too early. There's always a nice melee at the start of the race, as I mentioned, so just happy to get away cleanly. And I was hoping to keep up with the driver in first, but you can see they're just gaining more and more time every single corner, and there's just not really a lot we can do about that at this point. So I'm already thinking in the back of my mind, should we go for a bit of a defensive strategy in this one, as we're not really going to catch up with the driver in first. You can see I'm looking over my shoulder, and now we're trying to think, if anyone's coming up behind us, should we just sort of park the bus, preserve our position, and just hope for the best. So we come around the 1st lap here with a 35.742 second lap time, and I was hoping to try and build on this, get a little bit quicker, obviously for BIKC qualifying times. We just want to try and put in the best times that we can to try and be as high up in the qualifying leaderboards as we can. But unfortunately for us here, we get absolutely dive bombed by Gabe Quinter there, sort of forcing us off the apex, moving us down into 4th position, as we just weren't able to really recover from that, almost just getting stuck in the barrier there. We didn't just lose 1 position, but we also lost 2, so they were both then able to bolt away. I knew in the back of my mind that this kart wasn't the best of karts that was out on the track. I was really struggling to work with this one, and you can see in the lap times it's sort of reflecting this, coming across the line with 37.112. We do jump forward though once again, as we just sort of were trundling around in this car, not really doing too much. Our fastest lap so far is a 35.087, and now we're just hoping to keep our head down, keep the 4th position that we'd held, as we were pretty much defending for a large majority of this heat. Over half the heat we were in a defensive mindset, but unfortunately once again we got Anthony, who's dived down the inside for the 3rd time tonight, and we've just been hung out to dry here. Jacobs then followed through on the inside, and we've just leaked so many positions down to 8th. Luckily we're able to hold the inside line to keep 7th, but we just lost 4 positions or 3 positions, sorry, in the space of 2 corners. And once again we just skipped forward as nothing else happened, coming across the line on the last lap with a 35.052 and finishing in 7th place. Now we move into the A final, which is where we were positioned, and we actually started this one in 8th place, which I was quite surprised about. Really happy to be up in the A final, obviously only being to the track 2 times in 12 months, so really happy to still have some pretty decent pace and racing ability against some of the guys that come to the track a lot. So we just want to try and follow through. Tom Wiltshire up ahead of us here, who is also the other heavyweight driver in the A final, and I really wanted to try and put the pressure on him as best as I could. So you could see pretty quickly we've moved from 8th up to 7th, which I was really happy with, as we were now on for a pretty good result against some of the top drivers at the track, and I really wanted to get my head down, keep up with the front pack, and just see what we could do. Now obviously there was a pit stop element in this race. It was a little bit of a longer race compared to the heats, so I knew this was going to factor in, and I just wanted to see what we could do, maybe go for an undercut or an overcut on some of the other drivers if they were battling. But unfortunately, as you can see pretty quickly, the car had absolutely no pace whatsoever. We got situated in this car, which I saw people were complaining about and sort of not doing very well in the whole evening, and it just sort of shows here. We get absolutely dived into the bottom section of the track, losing 3 positions, and this is where frustration starts to set in, as there's just not really too much we could do. Now we're sort of trundling around now in these places where we've got drivers here, we're skipping forward, who have already pitted, who have then been able to come back out of the pits and re-overtake us. So I was getting really frustrated and demoralised, if I'm brutally honest. You can see I'm shaking my head. There was absolutely nothing I could do at this point. I believe that the kart was about over a second off the pace compared to most other people on average, and by the end of the sort of session we were only half a second off the fastest times of anyone else that was racing. But you can see here I'm actually waving people through that have already pitted, because this is actually a part of the summer championship that is being run at Cardiff at the moment. Didn't want to get in people's way, so we hopped into the pits here in our mandatory pit stop. Wanted to sort of swap the karts. There was no available karts to swap into, and as you can see here on the screen, our times were just awful compared to everyone else. So I was really gutted about this. Really wanted to just come over, do some pretty decent lap times and hop back out. However, you can see we're just stuck. We're in last place now at this point, getting lapped once again by Gabe, who we've been racing with all night, and we're now being lapped again, and there's just not really too much we can do. So at this point in the race I decided to call it quits, which is something that I never do really, but just call it quits, pull it into the pits, not get in anyone's way, and this is essentially how the end of the video comes about. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.